What if I told you that the final crystal-clear images we'll ever receive from Pluto revealed something so astonishing, it changed our understanding of the outer solar system forever? A frozen heart that might still be alive beneath the ice. A moon mysteriously stained red, possibly by its parent planet. And beyond all of that, a silent, untouched object floating in the distant darkness, further away than anything humanity has ever seen. This is not just a science mission. This is the story of New Horizons, a small spacecraft that redefined the edge of our solar system and might have uncovered something much older, and perhaps not entirely natural. It all began with what seemed like nothing, a faint blur in the sky. Just a cold, unimportant dot at the far edge of our solar system. For decades, Pluto was little more than a mystery, a forgotten smudge in our telescopes. Scientists dismissed it as a lifeless rock, too distant and too dark to bother with. It was out of reach and out of interest. But then, everything changed in 2006. That's when NASA launched a mission unlike anything before, a small spacecraft named New Horizons. It wasn't large, but it was fast, faster than anything we'd ever sent into space. New Horizons had one bold goal: to reach Pluto before anyone else, and to capture the first ever close-up images of this frozen world. It would take 9 long years to reach its destination, and when it finally arrived, what it discovered shocked the world. Pluto was not just a cold ice ball. It was a place of towering mountains made of solid water, vast plains, and even an atmosphere that, by all logic, shouldn't exist. But the most incredible part? That wasn't the end of the journey. Because after flying past Pluto, New Horizons kept going, and what it found next was even more bizarre. For most of the modern era, Pluto was just an afterthought in astronomy. It was too tiny, too remote, too dim to get much attention. Discovered back in 1930, Pluto was quickly categorized and then mostly ignored. Textbooks barely gave it a paragraph. Many didn't even bother including a photo, because we didn't have one worth showing. From Earth, even with the most powerful telescopes like Hubble, all we could see was a blurry, colored dot. It lacked detail and it lacked priority. But everything changed in 2006 when something extraordinary happened. NASA set out to change our view forever. At the same time that scientists were publicly debating whether Pluto should even be called a planet anymore, New Horizons quietly launched from Earth. It was no bigger than a baby grand piano, but it made history with the fastest launch speed ever recorded. To give you a sense of scale, it passed the moon in just 9 hours. That's 10 times faster than the Apollo missions. But this wasn't just a race. It was a mission of scientific redemption. A chance to explore the last of the original 9 planets and finally see what was hiding at the edge of our planetary neighborhood. But why Pluto? Why did this icy outcast matter so much? Because it marks the beginning of a vast region known as the Kuiper Belt. It's a mysterious zone beyond Neptune, filled with ancient icy bodies, relics from the birth of the solar system. If we could get up close to Pluto, scientists believed we might finally understand how planets form, how the early solar system behaved, and perhaps even discover new hidden objects lurking in the dark. Yet expectations were low. Most experts thought Pluto would be boring, a scarred, frozen, cratered ice rock. What New Horizons found instead shocked everyone. As New Horizons drifted slowly toward its target, it sent back data in tiny fragments. Just a few pixels at a time. But each image brought Pluto into sharper focus. Like watching an old photograph develop in slow motion. Every day the dot became clearer, the shadows deeper, the shape more real. Then came the moment no one expected. A huge, symmetrical light-colored patch appeared on the surface. It wasn't random. It wasn't subtle. It was unmistakably shaped like a heart. The universe didn't have to give us something so poetic, but it did. That heart would come to symbolize the entire mission. That iconic shape was later named Sputnik Planitia. But beyond its beauty, scientists saw something deeper. This wasn't just a static ice sheet. The heart of Pluto was geologically active. There were smooth plains of shifting nitrogen ice, and even hints of internal motion. Pluto wasn't frozen in time. It was dynamic. It was breathing. The surface wasn't just marked by ancient impacts. It was smooth, young, and surprisingly complex. These weren't the traits of a dead world. It seemed that under its icy crust, Pluto was still alive in ways no one had dared to hope before. The closer New Horizons got, the more emotional the mission became. The public followed it like a global countdown. People from all over the world watched as the spacecraft neared its target. And on July 14, 2015, after 9 years of travel and anticipation, New Horizons made its closest approach, just 12,500 kilometers above Pluto's surface. But in that crucial moment, the spacecraft went completely silent. It didn't fail. It didn't crash. It was just too busy. Taking photos, collecting data, so much so that it couldn't spare the bandwidth to phone home. Earth had to wait. All we could do was hope. Hours passed. Then days. And finally, the first high-resolution images began to trickle back. What they showed was more than breathtaking. It was surreal. Towering mountains of solid ice, flowing glaciers, strange chemicals, and a planet that might actually be reshaping itself from within. Pluto wasn't just a forgotten rock. It was a living world, sculpted by forces no one expected to find this far from the sun suddenly. Pluto wasn't just a dot. It was a frontier. And we were witnessing it for the very first time, from a spacecraft that almost never happened. What we learned next changed planetary science forever. When scientists finally got their hands on the detailed data, the reaction was overwhelming. Some of them cried. What they saw wasn't a dead relic of the early solar system. It was a place that had somehow stayed active across billions of years and 7.5 billion kilometers from the sun. At the center of it all was that massive icy heart, Sputnik Planitia. But this wasn't just a symbol. It was a glacier the size of Texas. And its surface? It was nearly free of craters, suggesting that it was extremely young, maybe less than 10 million years old. Something had resurfaced it recently. The smooth plains of Sputnik Planitia weren't simple. They showed strange, polygon-shaped patterns. These were likely convection cells, huge blobs of nitrogen ice slowly rising and sinking over time like a pot of boiling soup. Around the glacier's edges, solid mountains towered like frozen skyscrapers, some as high as the Rocky Mountains. But these weren't made of stone. They were made of solid water ice. And in Pluto's extreme cold, that ice is so hard it acts like granite. Nestled within those peaks were odd dome-like structures. They looked like volcanoes, but they didn't erupt fire. They erupted ice, ammonia, water, possibly even organic material. These weren't just volcanoes, they were cryovolcanoes, and Pluto had more than one. One of them, named Right Mons, stood 4 kilometers tall. It had a deep central pit and signs of internal activity. It looked still, but it wasn't dead. Pluto was alive, geologically, in ways that few expected. Even darker regions across the planet, like the Cthulhu Macula, had secrets. These areas were coated in dark reddish-black material. Scientists traced this to a strange chemical called tholins, complex molecules formed when ultraviolet light strikes methane and nitrogen. They're sticky. They're organic. They're prebiotic. And they just might resemble the chemistry of early Earth. But Pluto's most mysterious trait wasn't on the surface, it was in the sky. New Horizons detected a faint but real atmosphere. It was thin, yes, but it was made of nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. And unlike Earth's dense atmosphere, Pluto's extended far into space, layered in up to 20 separate haze levels, like curtains made of ghost light. These hazes bent and scattered sunlight in surreal ways. In one haunting image, mountains cast shadows through blue mist, as if the planet was dreaming. Even more bizarre? Pluto's atmosphere changes with the seasons. Sometimes it thickens. Other times, it nearly disappears. Pluto's orbit isn't just distant, it's eccentric, stretched like an oval rather than a circle. This elongated path causes its surface pressure to fluctuate wildly. In just a single Earth year, pressure on Pluto can increase up to 4 times. In one particularly deep region, scientists noticed what resembled a frozen lake, not of water but of liquid nitrogen. This hinted at hidden activity under the frozen crust. Despite its extreme cold and distance, Pluto shows signs of internal energy. It's a world that by all logic should be geologically dead, and yet, somehow, it shows life in motion. But this wasn't the strangest discovery. Because just beyond Pluto's icy mountains and plains, another world was quietly keeping watch. Not a planet, but a moon, so closely tied to Pluto that they orbit each other in a celestial dance. They're like 2 partners in a ballroom, locked together, always facing one another. But this moon wasn't just a silent companion. It was hiding something, an eerie red stain near its north pole. A deep, haunting red smear unlike anything we'd seen before. This moon is called Charon, and the mark it bears may be a cosmic fingerprint, one left by Pluto itself. Charon isn't your average moon. It's so massive compared to Pluto that the two don't behave like a typical planet-moon pair. Instead of Pluto keeping Charon in orbit, both bodies revolve around a shared center of gravity that floats in the space between them. This creates a gravitational standoff, where both worlds are tightly locked, facing each other forever, an eternal mirror dance. When New Horizons flew past, it captured a remarkable sight, a massive red cap on Charon's north pole. It was alien, surreal, and mysterious. But where did it come from? Scientists believe the answer lies with Pluto. Pluto's thin atmosphere is constantly leaking into the vacuum of space. Its gravity isn't strong enough to hold onto everything. Some of those escaping particles, complex organic molecules called tholins, are swept away like whispers on the solar wind. And some of them drift toward Charon. Over time, these particles fall and settle mostly on its poles, where the cold is intense enough to freeze them permanently. That red cap isn't from Charon itself, it's Pluto's breath, a literal transfer of identity. Charon wears Pluto's mark like a tattoo, a cosmic symbol of their bond, proof that even worlds can shape one another. It's a beautiful kind of poetry. While Pluto hides its own heart beneath layers of ice, it leaves its presence on the face of the one body that can never look away. Charon will always see Pluto, always face it. And now it carries a gift, a red signature from the world it orbits. But Pluto and Charon weren't the end of New Horizons' journey. Far beyond them, deeper into the Kuiper Belt, the spacecraft had one more destination. It was a place no one had ever seen before, too small, too dim, too far. Until the Hubble Space Telescope glimpsed something strange. Just before New Horizons reached Pluto, NASA pointed the Hubble into the blackness beyond. What they found wasn't a planet or a moon, but a blurry object shaped like a snowman. A contact binary, two lobes gently touching, frozen in time. This world was named Arrokoth, meaning sky, in the Powhatan language. It's likely older than any planet, and it became New Horizons' next target. The mission wasn't over yet. After Pluto, New Horizons continued forward into unexplored space. This wasn't a planned destination, it was discovered after the spacecraft was already flying. That made Arrokoth the first of its kind in history. Arrokoth drifts over 6.5 billion kilometers from the Sun. It's out there in the Kuiper Belt like a bottle adrift in the cosmic sea. After Pluto, it took New Horizons another 3.5 years to catch up. But on January 1, 2019, the probe finally arrived. The first images trickled back slowly, and what we saw was stunning. Arrokoth didn't look like anything we expected. Not an asteroid, not a comet. It looked like a snowman, two rounded shapes joined gently, like celestial puzzle pieces. But this wasn't just about how it looked. It was what wasn't there that told the deeper story. Unlike the battered and cratered surfaces of planets and moons closer to the Sun, Arrokoth was smooth. Barely touched. No impact scars, no signs of cosmic collisions. Its surface was eerily calm, as if nothing had touched it in billions of years. That's because it likely hadn't. Arrokoth had remained undisturbed for over 4 billion years. It's not just a rock, it's a time capsule. A preserved relic from the solar system's earliest days. Its reddish color comes from the same type of tholins found on Pluto and Charon, altered over time by radiation. But Arrokoth's chemistry held even deeper surprises. New Horizons detected a mixture of unexpected elements on Arrokoth's surface: methanol, water ice, hydrogen cyanide, and a mysterious unknown compound. Something on this world absorbs light specifically at a wavelength of 1.8 microns, but nothing we've cataloged matches it. That means we may have discovered a substance never before seen in space or on Earth. And there was another surprise: temperature. Models predicted that Arrokoth, so far from the Sun, would be extremely cold, around 12 to 14 Kelvin. But readings showed it was closer to 30 Kelvin. This suggested there might still be heat coming from inside. Something unknown is warming this ancient world. Even Arrokoth's shape held secrets. At first glance, it seemed symmetrical, two rounded spheres fused like snowballs. But as scientists studied the data more closely, they realized it wasn't perfectly round. The shape was flattened, pressed. Some researchers believe this may have happened over millions of years. One side exposed to sunlight more than the other, gradually releasing gases, slowly reshaping the body. Or perhaps Arrokoth formed this way from the beginning, two fragile bodies orbiting each other, spiraling inward until they met. And when they touched, the collision was so slow, just 2 meters per second, they simply stayed that way forever. And that's what makes Arrokoth so special. Unlike nearly every other object we've seen, it didn't crash violently into anything. It didn't shatter. It didn't crumble. It endured. Untouched and unchanged since the beginning of our solar system. A ghost from a time before planets. A frozen echo of a time we can never witness directly. Arrokoth is a preserved memory, and maybe it still holds answers we don't yet know how to ask. As New Horizons moved on, it turned one last time. The image it captured was haunting, a pale silhouette drifting away, suspended in darkness against a sea of stars. That final glimpse might be the last time any human-made object will ever see Arrokoth. There were no fireworks, no cheers, no engines roaring. Just silence. The quiet hum of a lonely machine, floating 6.6 billion kilometers from home. A silent message beamed back to Earth. A farewell, maybe. But the journey wasn't over. Pluto showed us a world with glaciers that flow, volcanoes that might erupt, and a hidden heart beating beneath ice. Charon showed us how two bodies can be forever locked in orbit, shaping each other. And Arrokoth proved that untouched places still exist, ancient, delicate, and full of secrets. New Horizons didn't just take photos. It redefined what we thought was possible at the edge of the solar system. And the best part? It's not finished. The spacecraft still has fuel in its tank. Its instruments are alive. And now NASA is planning a new mission. Instead of simply flying, New Horizons could become the most distant observatory ever created. It could study ultraviolet light from distant galaxies. It could search for rogue planets, lonely wanderers between stars. It might even help us understand the true shape of the heliosphere, the invisible bubble that wraps around our entire solar system. Just imagine that. A tiny probe, launched all the way back in 2006, still flying through interstellar space, still listening, still watching. It's a reminder that exploration doesn't end, it just changes shape. Somewhere out there, beyond where even sunlight begins to fade, New Horizons continues its silent flight. If Pluto, Charon, and Arrokoth could reveal so many wonders, then what else might be waiting in the darkness? What other secrets hide beyond the edge? The James Webb Space Telescope may have already spotted something that could change everything. Click on the next video and discover the alien signal that has astronomers holding their breath.